Another bounce in inflation yesterday has some economists talking about a rate rise early next year. But my next guest thinks anyone thinking that isn't looking closely enough at the unemployment rate creeping up. He says the state of the economy is actually uncharted in most decision makers' living memory, and it's going to be tough to sort out. Leith Van Onselen is an economist at Macro Business. He's previously worked at the Australian Treasury, Victorian Treasury and Goldman Sachs. Leith, good morning.
G'day, Kelly. How are you?
Good. So we were all looking at this inflation bounce and the predictions are, the Reserve's not going to like that. What do you see?
Yeah, absolutely. The Reserve Bank won't like it at all. The measure that they look at most closely is called the trim mean inflation. So it's basically, it's also known as underlying inflation. So that's basically the inflation rate when you take out the most volatile items. And that increased to 3.3% in the 12 months to October. Now, the Reserve Bank's got a target to keep inflation between 2 and 3%. Yep. And obviously 3.3% is above that. And that basically just means that it's not going to cut rates, anytime soon. Possibly, probably not within the next 6 months at least. And most likely to keep rates on hold for the foreseeable future. So they certainly wouldn't be happy about it. And unfortunately, one of the areas that is actually driving this inflation is it's called domestic services inflation. Mm-hmm. So basically, that's stuff that's not bought off a ship, like imported goods and that sort of thing. It's your services inflation in the private sector economy, and that's also picked up as well. So and that's tracking above the Reserve Bank's target as well. Mm. So yeah, it's not a good set of numbers, unfortunately.
No, so Leith, this is the thing, isn't it? Like it seems like it's not the average Australian going out, stocking up on white goods or luxuries or those sort of things. This is electricity. This is petrol prices. Those sort of things that we don't control.
Yeah, we don't. So the true mean inflation actually wouldn't include the electricity because that's one of the volatile items. However, this rising energy that we've got, so we've got gas and electricity prices have been rising for years. Obviously, it's been clouded a bit by subsidies and that sort of thing, but the underlying pressure is upwards. And what they can do is, even though in this case it's been excluded, it does have broader impacts across the economy. So it has what's called second round effects. So because energy costs feed into everything, so if you're running a cafe, you've got to pay power bills and then you end up passing those costs eventually on to the consumers. That happens across every single business in the country. And when we have this soaring gas and electricity prices, it eventually becomes inflationary across the entire economy and will get picked up in all these other areas as well. And that's one of the key challenges Australia's got. Because we're going into this, renewables future. Also, we've completely messed up the gas market, whereby on the East Coast we export nearly 3/4 of our gas, but we've also got some of the most expensive gas prices in the world, which is crazy. Through stupid policy, that's also putting inflationary pressure across the economy, and that's going to continue really for the next decade or so as we continue. Shutting down coal-fired generators, replacing them with intermittent renewables, which are expensive, and then paying expensive gas prices. So unfortunately, this is sort of an inflationary shock that's going to be festering in the economy for a decade plus.
Oh, goodness. I've just felt weary hearing that, Leith. Because it all feels so strange at the moment and out of the average person's control. You've called it stagflation. So what does that mean?
Yeah, so we had this in the 1970s, but the drivers are a bit different. So it's kind of uncharted territory. What it basically means is we've got a very low growth economy. Certainly in per capita terms, once you strip out population growth, we've got very, very slow growth. We've actually had a per capita recession for a lot of the last couple of years. We've also got incredibly low productivity growth. And then we've also got rising unemployment. So, although it fell last month from the month before, it's trending upwards. But then we've also got this stubborn inflation. So we've got this low growth, higher unemployment, so rising unemployment, but also stubbornly high inflation economy. And that's really hard for the Reserve Bank because the Reserve Bank's got a dual mandate. It's got a mandate for price stability, so to keep inflation between 2 and 3%, but also to maintain full employment. And unfortunately, we're in an economy now where we're facing higher unemployment in the period ahead. But also this stubbornly high inflation. So they're basically caught between a rock and a hard place, and they're in a tug of war. And that's why I don't really subscribe to this view that the RBA is going to hike interest rates. I think that they'll keep them on hold, and if anything, I think the next move could eventually be down because of rising unemployment. But, don't expect that for at least 6 months minimum.
Yeah. So should we be watching what we're spending on the Black Friday sales and across Christmas and those sort of things, or is that going to make little to no difference?
Oh, look, on an individual level, it makes little to no difference. I mean, this is an economy-wide thing. And to be honest with you, I've spent a bit on this Black Friday sales because I'm pre-buying Christmas presents. So obviously, if you can buy things cheaper, go ahead and do it, because if you can save some money, why not? But, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. As an individual in an economy of 27 plus million people, nearly 28 million people, I wouldn't worry too much about it.
So what does the future possibly hold here then for the Australian economy? What sort of levers are we looking at to make some sort of change to what seems like, as you've said, it's stagflation? Here we are, we're kind of stuck.
Yeah, we are stuck, unfortunately. And again, I think one of the biggest policy blunders that the economy that Australia has done is we've decided to give ourselves expensive energy. Now, we are the biggest coal exporter in the world. We're the second biggest gas exporter in the world. We're sitting on tons of the stuff, and we export 7 times more coal than we use ourselves, and we export 4 times more gas than we use ourselves. Well, why are we exporting this stuff and refusing to use it ourselves and then giving ourselves expensive energy? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Just logically, it doesn't make sense. So unfortunately, we've decided to give ourselves an expensive energy future, despite being an energy superpower, having abundance of everything that the world needs other than oil. We should have the cheapest energy costs in the world, but we don't. And as a result, we're going to keep pushing up power prices, both electricity and gas, through flawed policy, and that's going to keep, basically stoking inflation, stoking cost of living. It's going to send our manufacturing sector broke, because cheap energy is the bedrock of the manufacturing industry. And if you don't have cheap energy, you'll end up shutting and shifting offshore, and that's effectively what's happening to Australia. Yeah.
Leith Van Onselen, good hearing from you this morning. I think people would be happy to hear, well, as happy as you're going to get anyway, to hear that it might just be rates on hold rather than rates going up.
No problem, Kelly, anytime.
Leith Van Onselen, economist at Macro Business, previously worked for the Australian Treasury, Victorian Treasury and at Goldman Sachs.